This is episode 20 of the Air Hug Community Podcast. Hi, I'm Judy Arizosa, and the host here on the Air Hug Community. I started the Air Hug Community to bring you stories from guests and myself on topics that speak to mothers and others. We cover it all from relationships to personal development to family and human connection. The Air Hug Community is a connected community, and we stand by the creed that improving the lives of others will ultimately boomerang back to you in ways that you don't expect. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. We were just giggling. I'm so excited to introduce my very good friend today, and we're going to be talking about, well, I'll wait and see. You'll see in a minute. But I want to just tell you about my friend because we've known each other for several years, and we met in a mastermind. And then that was a year-long mastermind. And then we were in another mastermind a year later for a second year long. And right at the get-go, at the beginning of the first one, we actually connected. And it was Emily, that's her name. Emily kept saying, let's get on some calls, besides there was a Facebook group and all these other things. But she kept saying, let's book Zoom calls. And I got to tell you, this was so long ago that I didn't even know what Zoom was. But so I think Emily gets the credit for me even learning about Zoom. But we would just connect with Emily and a few other people that were in that mastermind regularly on our own. And so human connection is a very big value of Emily. So I'm going to introduce to you Emily Gough. And Emily, take it from here. Tell us all about yourself.
Oh my gosh, Judy, you're so sweet. I just adore you. And I want to, at some point, we're going to have to talk a little bit more about the history of our personal friendship and how it has grown and evolved too, because it also kind of ties in with today's topic.
Oh, yes, we will.
Well.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I never know where to begin with these questions. I have very random sort of eclectic work history and education. I have like a degree in criminal justice. I then worked in the corporate world for 11 years while I was building out side hustles with First Fitness and then holistic nutrition, which is what I was doing when you and I met. And yes. Then that kind of grew and evolved into a couple other things. And now I have really kind of grounded in my biggest strengths, which are quite literally teaching human connection. Human connection, personal growth, and kind of the concept of freedom and what that means to different people. That's sort of the intersection of where I teach. And it's what my podcast, Room to Grow, is largely based around. And you have been on the Room to Grow podcast. Your episode is wildly popular, by the way. That was like almost 2 years ago, and it's wildly popular.
2 years ago. Wow. Who knew?
Yeah. And then on a more personal note, I am Canadian. And I was in a 9-year relationship, which also 2 years ago, on Christmas Eve, I got a knock on the door that was to inform me that my partner of 9 years had been having an affair off and on for our entire time together with his former girlfriend. He had a secret house 170 meters away from our driveway. It was quite the kerfluffle. I ended the relationship. I sold the house, almost all my belongings, packed a suitcase, and moved to Bali for close to a year. So that was a whole situation, and it definitely changed things for me a lot. Yeah, and we can get into that more. But what I wanted to tie in with you with that was that when my relationship fell apart, you were one of the first people I reached out to, and you and I, of my hometown, you and I are actually only about like a 2.5 hour drive away. There's an international border between us, but 2.5 hours.
Yeah, details.
Yeah. And you twisted my arm to get me to come see you. So I came to stay with you for the weekend, just 2 weeks after everything fell apart. And Judy, I think I even put on a little bit of brave face when you first saw me, but I was shell-shocked. I had not seen daylight in 2 weeks. I had not left the house. I basically hadn't even eaten for 2 weeks. And you and your doggies brought me back to life in a single weekend. You just pampered me and took care of me. And I will never forget that. That was just really such a beautiful example of not only just friendship, but just of what a generous spirit you have. And anyone who comes across you, I think would be able to feel that energy about you, because you just have a really beautiful spirit. So
Oh, thank you. I have to say that weekend we probably spent more time outdoors than in,
we
which
did.
was great. And it was January, right?
Yeah, it
But
was chilly.
I was just like, we need to get you out of Dodge. You get in a car and get here, and we'll just figure it out when you get here.
I actually get emotional every time I think about it. Like I
Yeah.
have like thought about it before and like started to cry, just like the generosity that you showed me. So thank you.
Well, you are like a sister to me.
Oh,
So,
you're so sweet.
so you posted something the other day on your Instagram that just completely hit a spark in my head. And you said it so well that, of course, you know this. I messaged you and I'm like, you have to come on the podcast and talk about this. So, and this is why I invited you on. And it probably dates back to that time when you were questioning your own strength.
Yes.
And I'm going to read the quote that you wrote on Instagram. And
Oh
then
my
I'm going to
Lord.
let,
I've gotten to the stage where people read my quotes. What is happening?
yeah, people do read your quotes,
That's
right?
hilarious.
I know. Well, this one's worth quoting. And it's, you put this in your calendar as a personal reminder. And it says, Jim, colon, because you need to remind yourself of your own strength. So tell us about that.
So it was 2 or 3 months into my relationship falling apart, my entire life coming crashing down around me. And in the months that followed, because there had been 9 years of deception and betrayal, then everything started coming out. So it was like every day I was finding out more and more things, sometimes things that I didn't even want to find out. Other people would tell me something that, they hadn't thought much of at the time, but then it turned out to be some big lie that I was now uncovering. And it felt like every time I got up, I got hit back down again. And I didn't work out much at all. And lifting is a very big part of my life. It has been for years. And for the first couple months, I didn't really go to the gym much at all. And then I started to get back into it, but I was having a hard time. And at one point, one particularly devastating lie came out about three-ish months in. And I had a complete breakdown, one of many. And then I wrote that reminder in my phone, because I was like, okay, I've been out of the gym for too long. My mental health is suffering for many reasons that have nothing to do with not being in the gym. But one of the ways that I can rebuild that resilience is through lifting, because the barbells have always been there. They've always been there. And we can get into this more too, about how I also put in that post about how the barbells don't lie. That was an especially, yes, that that was an especially relevant thought of mine, and given what else was happening in my life. But we can also get into that more in terms of, people can't fake strength, whether it's physical or emotional. You can kind of fake it for a little bit, but overall, it's not something that you can hide behind for long. The truth comes out. And the only way to build physical strength is to continue to push through that resistance. And sometimes the biggest resistance is just getting under the barbell in the first place. And then once you get under the barbell, it can actually come a little bit more easily, but that's part of the struggle. And it's how we build, to me, that building our physical strength that way builds our emotional strength as much or more so than the benefits that we get on a physical level.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about, I think, the confidence in believing in yourself. Because a lot of times the weight will be scary, or you just don't want to do it. But let's say you want to do it and you get there, but you don't have the energy and the weight is scary and you do it anyway. Not dangerously scary, but it's a story in your head, right?
Yeah, of course. Especially if you are lifting pretty heavy, you can easily talk yourself out of it. Like, oh, I didn't. And there's legitimate things there. If you didn't get enough sleep the night before, or if you haven't been eating well, or you're tired or whatever, there's all kinds of biofeedback that I know that you talk about all the time with your clients. And that's all really important too. But sometimes, even if you strip the weight back, you do something really light, you just move in some way, because a lot of us also don't have access to barbells right now. That's very relevant to the time at the moment. and just because of, gyms closing and all of that.
Mhm.
But you can always move. And I feel really strongly that in movement, there is life. And I really tied to that when it came time to leave my geographical location to go across the world. I had just felt that I had reached as far as I could go as a human in that geographical spot in my hometown. And I was like,
Mhm.
I can't, my energy is pulling me elsewhere. I have to go elsewhere. And that's one of so many parallels that we could draw between the gym or working out of some kind and movement and life, and how they're so intricately related to one another. And there's so many parallels between them.
Yeah. And when one is going well, it does help the other.
It does. It does. And it's not to say that, you can't have really shitty things going on in your life, but you could be lifting like a mofo in the gym. Awesome.
Hmm.
But
Well, that
they
happens.
still
Yeah.
help each other. Yeah. Yeah. And one is going to help you build up the confidence and strength to go on in the other.
Yeah. I love what you said about how you can't fake strength and in movement there is life. And what on such a scale, I mean, you didn't just move, you went across the world, which
Yeah.
was amazing to me. And also at that point I saw a lot of pictures of you working out in Bali,
Yes. Oh, yeah. It was
right?
the very first thing I did. Actually, it made me laugh because I went to a gym because I got into Bali quite late on my very first day. It was too late for me to go to the gym. But one of the ways that I combat jet lag is I always try and move my body as quickly as possible. So the next morning I got up, I found a gym right away. I went to the gym, and there was another girl working out there, and she said, "Oh, like, when did you get in?" And I said, "Just last night." And she's like, "And you're already at the gym?" Yes, yes, I am. I'm already at the gym. And that just, to me, it's also a very grounding practice that I use, because right now I don't really have a main home base, especially with the pandemic. It has, I sold my house here in Canada, so I'm just kind of grounded here temporarily, staying with
Hmm.
family. And I've been a couple other places and stuff too, but that can take a lot of my energy at this point, not feeling grounded. So I have to work really hard to cultivate grounding practices that I take with me no matter where I am. And one of those is movement and working out. And I just think that, whether you have a home base or not, that's a really beautiful practice to cultivate into your everyday life. It doesn't have to mean doing deadlifts every day, although I totally would. But even just like walking or something like that, right? Like whatever that looks like, just that physical movement. It also sparks creativity. It's a really beautiful activity to do with people, even when we are not, when we're supposed to be physically distanced. You've been doing this, every single day with your clients, like still
Yes, I
finding
have.
workarounds, going for hikes or walks with friends where you're outdoors. All of these things, there's so many beautiful things that can come with that, like you and I did at your house too.
Yes, we did.
Yep.
And that was very important. And that was the grayest of gray weekends.
It
We
was.
didn't.
Nope, we didn't see an ounce of sunshine. And every time we walked, you and I would walk and I would just cry almost the entire time. But it was
And
so therapeutic.
it really, you hid your crying very well, I think. You did. But oh, it's amazing. And the reason I wanted you on here to talk about this was because there's so often I talk about, obviously, people know I talk about staying fit and just consistently moving and moving and moving. And I think it's not because, okay, I'm the number one vainest person, and I make no
I don't think
excuses
that at
about
all.
that, but that's fine. But it's not for that. That's not even the first, second, or third reason. It's for sanity.
Mhm.
It really is for sanity and for confidence and for confidence in a way where I believe, and I know that people who come to work out, they believe it spills over into other areas of our life, that when they do well in the gym, they do well other places. It's like all of a sudden their pantry's organized, or if that's their thing, or, there's just all sorts of spillover. And when you put that quote up, I'm like, yes, Emily, yes, we just have to come on here and talk about it.
Well, and it's funny too, because the other side of that is that I work really closely with a coach. He's my coach from Bali as well, and he and I work together virtually now during the pandemic. And he's a sweetheart. He's amazing, and we actually have like a really close like he's a good friend too, but we also have just a really close like client coach relationship. So we talk every single week, and he's very much a proponent of working out for mental health, which is one of the reasons why he and I get along so well, because
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest things too. And
Hmm.
he has seen me go through major ups and downs, as we all have throughout
Yeah.
this whole year.
Yeah.
And one of the issues I was having was for a short stretch there, I was having a lot of insomnia. I was feeling really burned out with work and all of that, and my workouts started suffering. And then I started freaking out because I'm
Mm.
like, the workouts are the one thing that I can control in my life right now. And when everything else is so uncertain and we never know what to expect, every time we turn on the news and all of these things, these workouts have pushed me through this pandemic. And then when those started to suffer, I started to freak out, and he had to calm me down a
Yeah.
little bit. This is the benefit of having a coach. And Judy, I know you do this with your clients as well, is having enough of that really beautiful relationship. And it's a privilege to be able to have a coach of any kind. But to have somebody kind of in your corner who can talk you through those moments a little
Yes.
bit, where
Yeah.
again, it's a parallel where, yeah, sometimes things aren't going to go as well in the gym as you want. And guess what? That happens in life too. So it's just one more way that you can really draw between the two.
Yes. And here, there's something I want to say to this, because I think a lot of times in my experience of coaching women over the last 12 years, when they get to that point, instead of saying there's something wrong here, they tend to blame themselves. And
Yes, and was totally doing that. I was like, what's
oh,
wrong
you
with my
were.
body? Like, I'm
Hmm.
not where I need to be, even though I know, because I have background in this. I know I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating enough, like I was burned out. Of course it makes sense, but I was still very bothered by it.
Oh, it's hugely bothersome. And I actually went through a period of that. And, you think coaches aren't even supposed to do that, and it was a couple of years ago, and it was not, I just kind of worked through it. It was show up the number of days I was going to work out anyway. And I told myself, you only have to stay for 15 minutes, and
Mhm.
then just do that much and then see what happens after that.
I
And
love
there were days it was only 15 minutes, and there were days that it lasted 45. But I think the thing that I want to note that you did was you told your coach.
Yeah.
You didn't make an excuse, or, you didn't do the whole break up with the coach thing.
I would never break up with him. I'm like, you and I are buds for life. We've lived through a pandemic together with an ocean between us. You're never getting rid of me.
Right. Okay. There you go. Yeah. The bonds that have been built are amazing. And I feel that way, with several of, if not all of my women. It's amazing. But I think it's important to note that when that happens to us, because it's going to happen and it's going to happen again, we're not always going to be on top of our game. And it is kind of a chicken and egg. What suffers first? Is it the mental or the physical? But it doesn't matter. And I don't even know that we have to know what suffers first. I think we just have to have, for me, it's having a routine in place, like the 15-minute minimum,
Yes.
to
Yeah. I
get
totally
through it.
agree. Yeah. And it's funny because just before we jumped on, I was laughing to you because I was like, the irony of this is that I haven't worked out in 4 days, which is so unlike me. Like I work out fairly religiously 5 to 6 days per week. And this is very unusual. I am feeling it mentally. And I was like, okay, this is actually perfect timing because as soon as we're done this recording, I'm going to go work out.
You made an appointment.
I
Perfect.
did. Exactly. Exactly.
That is so cool. So tell me, well, we talked about the barbells don't lie. Hold on a second. Am I allowed to do that? Hold on a second.
Oh, you sure can.
Why not? Right. So I know there's something first of all, tell us about your podcast. And then I know there's something you're very excited about. So,
Well, first, I want to give you a bit of props here because you were one of my podcasting clients.
Yes,
And
folks, this is my podcast coach and good friend, by the way.
you're so cute. So, I was doing like podcast and business coaching stuff as well. And I still have podcasting courses and all of that. So I do still do some of that, but that was kind of what got me started with realizing that, connecting people and just building relationships is really one of my strengths. I kind of figured that out because of podcasting, but I just want to give you like some serious credit for a moment, because you came to me, you'd been talking about a podcast on and off for 2 years to me.
Three,
And
actually,
is
since
it three? It was.
2017.
That's right. That's right. And I knew you would get there when you were ready. And sure enough, out of nowhere, it felt like one day you were just like, okay, I'm ready. And you just moved so quickly. You did not let anything stop you. You came up with this beautiful idea of the Air Hug community, and you've just put something together that is so special. And I just want to really congratulate you, because I've just watched you like grow and blossom into podcasting and how much you love it. And then you were laughing yesterday. You're like, oh, I get to interview the person who taught me how to interview. You're so cute.
I did think that was very funny. And I find it to be so enjoyable. And thank you so much. And I will tell you, people, I did say this to Emily. I said, all right, if I'm going to do this, there's going to be a start date for learning how to do this. There's going to be a launch date. And we actually only changed the launch date because it was a day of the week.
Yeah.
We didn't really push it back a week or two or anything. It was like, I'm going to do this. And here it is. Boom. We can figure it out.
And I was just so impressed at how you took the action. Like you were just like, yep, I'm doing it. And you would tell me you're going to do cover artwork, and then you would send it to me like 10 minutes later. Sometimes when people tell me that, I don't get it for like 3 months. I'm so impressed.
No, there was a deadline. And if I give myself a deadline, you got to do it,
Yeah. You're very good at that. It's like the workout appointment, right? You're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm going, even if it's for 15 minutes. Yep.
Yeah. And my older brother, well, I have 5 older brothers, but and they're all very handy and talented and like doing like Mr. Fix It. Is that what you mean? How do you say it? Kind of things. But my brother, I'm like, how do you do these things? It's the same way. He says, I write it down on the calendar. It's going to be whatever day it is. Then I'm going to start this project. And I'm going to work on it. And there's a targeted finish date. And he usually comes pretty close. He does like amazing things, like builds rooms.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah. But he just said, it is when you're ready to do it, you do it.
That's beautiful. And I think that's the best philosophy for all of us. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think going back to like working out, sometimes you do have periods where you're not ready, and you just that's where I do the 15-minute rule, but then when you are ready, just say to yourself, 100% of the time, you do not regret a workout, right?
Yep.
100% of the time. And I talk about endorphins I talked about this in episode 18 about endorphins are my drug of choice. And it's the way to get them is through movement.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And they just provide so many incredible mood boosting benefits. It's like magic sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
It is like magic. It's a release. Yeah.
Well, now that I've sidetracked us, sorry, what was your question?
Okay. So my next question is, I did want to tell us about Room to Grow, but.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes. So yeah, the Room to Grow podcast, I mean, it has evolved a little bit, because when I started it 2.5 years ago, I was still a little bit in nutrition, but it's always ultimately been about having the really uncomfortable conversations that everyone else wants to avoid. That's kind of my sweet spot. That's where I thrive, is, talking about the things that everyone else is cringing, going, I can't believe we're talking about this. I'm like, yes. Oh, we're talking about this. So kind of all about like relationships, infidelity, personal growth. I do talk about like entrepreneurship and some of the struggles with that as well. Failures, successes, like really digging into some hard truths sometimes. And I tend to be known for sharing pretty openly as well, and really sort of pulling back the curtain a lot on some things that other people would probably prefer to keep hidden away.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically what I'm known for the most with that. And I'm now launching the Room to Grow Mastermind, which it's so funny because it feels like I should have been doing this from the very beginning with the podcast, but it was the journey to get here. And I just feel like this is what I've been meant to be doing all along, because the two biggest joys that I have when it comes to my business have always been the Room to Grow podcast and coaching people and working closely with people, interviewing guests, like all of these amazing things. And the mastermind brings together those two things. So I'm teaching all about compassion, boundaries, relationships, trust, communication, forgiveness. These are all of the things that I go so deep into in the podcast. And now I've created a space where it'll be 8 weeks long. You get like all kinds of actual coaching time with me, and it's a really small, intimate group. And I'm going to be teaching how to actually go deep into those things and really apply them as well. Because Judy, I'm sure you've had this experience as well. I can listen to so many podcast episodes, but then I can love them, but I don't necessarily pick up enough to apply it, and it's
bits and
hard to get those
pieces.
tools. Yeah, because you're busy, you're doing other things. And this is going to be much more focused and allow us to really do a deep dive into it. And the other reason why I feel like it's really helpful right now is because there's so much uncertainty. And I really want to teach people how to work through that and how to leave behind the parts of 2020, because 2020 has given us a lot of clarity in some very painful forms sometimes, but it's given us a lot of clarity. And I've seen so many people start to reprioritize their life and start to really closely examine what's important to them and what isn't, and looking to make some big shifts going forward. And that's going to require taking personal ownership and responsibility for yourself and your own actions. And that's ultimately what the mastermind is going to be about. So I'm very, very excited about the mastermind. It's definitely the pinnacle of what I feel like I've been working towards for so long, and I can't wait to dive in.
I'm just nodding my head along here. It is, I think your timing is fabulous, because there are a lot of people that are at such a crossroads in their life, with maybe their old job doesn't exist, or maybe they don't want it anymore, or their life situations are different. And it's definitely a time to re-examine how to go about, and what's important,
Yeah. Yeah.
the why and the
Evaluate
how.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
I will go out as far as to say is, in most instances, for most of us, the why doesn't change, but how and what we want to do with it, from this day forward, is definitely going to be different.
I think that's very insightful, actually. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And that's really what a lot of this comes down to in the mastermind, is navigating some hard life transitions. Because a lot of people look at me and they'll go, you ended this 9-year relationship. You picked up and traveled around the globe by yourself to live on your own, like for months and months and months on end. How did you do this? How did you move on from the relationship? Like, how are you smiling and laughing about your former partner's affair at this point? And I mean, you watched me go through it every step of the way, Judy, and there were some very not cute days. There were
some
some
dark
very,
days.
very, very dark days. And this, a lot of what I have learned, I mean, I'd like to think I had at least a little bit of wisdom before then, but a lot of what I feel like I've learned and picked up has been through some very hard earned lessons that came out of that entire experience and everything that encompassed. And that's really what I'm most excited to teach too, because this is a big shift for a lot of people right now, like massive, massive shifts. And even, especially I feel like for women, because by far I can't remember the exact statistics, but by far an astonishing majority of the people who have been dropped from the workforce essentially are women,
Yeah.
because with the homeschooling situation and everything else, it's usually the women that end up at home still. I mean, I know it's 2020, but that is the reality. And women have been hit hardest by this. And in some ways, I feel like we've taken 30 steps back in
Yeah.
terms of progress. So there are a lot of women that are navigating some very difficult situations and transitions right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I would venture to say a lot of people did not plan on being homeschooling parents. And,
No kidding. I do
and a
not
lot of
envy
them are
any
going
parent.
back to it again.
Yeah, because the numbers are not improving. Like by the time this comes out in a few weeks, I think the numbers are probably going to be higher than ever after the holidays and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's really tough.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're recording this in mid-December.
Yes.
Um, and who knows what it will be like when this comes out in a few weeks.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm super excited about your mastermind. I do think it's about time. I think it's, but I will say, I want to commend you because you didn't rush into and just say, okay, now I'm a coach, here's a mastermind. I mean, you've been living through this experience, this process, for a very long time. And you've been doing your due diligence.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and that is true because you will see people come out of the gate, do it right away. And I think it's really valuable that I've had years and years of coaching experience at this point too, because you can have all the knowledge in the world, but you also have to be able to be a good coach and to be able to meet people where they're at if you're going to be able to help them grow. Like you know that better than anyone.
Yeah.
And some people that simply might not be their strength, and that's totally fine. But you kind of need a combination of both to really maximize it. So yeah, I'm really excited. So yeah, we're starting January 18th. So I'm very excited about that. So it is coming up. For anybody who's interested, they can, reach out to you. They can reach out to me. Yeah.
I'll put everything in the show notes. But also, if people are listening after, and how long is the mastermind? Is it 8 weeks?
8 weeks. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll launch again in April of 2021.
Okay. So that was my next question, because
Yeah.
if they miss the first round, they can maybe contact you to get on a wait list.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do one-on-one coaching as well, if that's something that you're interested in, for all of these same types of things, or you can sit tight until the mastermind launches again. Yeah.
All right. So Coach, how am I doing?
Coach, you are killing, or student, you are killing it. I
All
get
right.
confused with it because you're a fitness coach too. I'm like, wait, what is happening?
No, you're wearing the coach hat. Although it feels so weird. First of all, we've been chatting for years, but I was just laughing with all right, I'm going to ask Emily these questions and she kind of taught me how to write them. Okay, that's cool.
But I love this. It's really cool to see. And I learned so much from you in so many different forms. And so this has just been such a beautiful, back and forth relationship always. So I just adore you.
Yeah, I adore you back too. And it's pretty cool. So, and another cool thing about this is that there's a pretty big age difference between us. And I think it's pretty cool that, we can have really good friends of all different ages.
I think so too. And for some reason, this popped into my head this morning when I was thinking about jumping on with you. I was laughing because, so I'm the same age basically as some of your kids.
Yes.
And it's so funny because when you invited me to come to the house, I remember you telling me that, that your kids were like, Mom, you can't invite people from the internet to stay in our house.
I'm like, no,
So
we've
funny.
met before. They were like, Mom, what's wrong with you?
Well, I swear I didn't pocket the china, so you know by now.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. All right, Emily, this has been super great. I will put your contact information in the show notes. Is there anything else you want to let us know?
I just honestly, oh gosh, what a question. I just want people to know that they're stronger than they think. That you are stronger than you think you are, and that one of the really beautiful ways that you can build that strength and to start to see that strength within yourself is by moving your body, whatever that looks like for you. It doesn't have to mean lifting weights. Like if you want to do Zumba or whatever, that's fine too. But just to move, and that's part of how we are going to shift and grow and evolve. And that's really going to help you on your journey and to give you the confidence to show up in the fullest expression of yourself.
Completely. I completely agree. And you said that so well.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for being
Thank you for having me.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. It was a pleasure talking to Emily and listening to her. I wanted to bring on the perspective of someone else, from using your strength in the gym to carry over to strength in other areas of your life. And she talked about it in such an interesting way. So if you'd like to connect with Emily, you can check out the show notes to find out more about her coaching mastermind. And if you're more interested in looking for a training coach, of course, you can hop on over to the Grateful Fitness website and check out my services. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful week. And remember, new episodes come out every single Tuesday on the Air Hug Community Podcast.